When you think of World War II fighter planes, certain names rise to the surface right away. The Wildcat, the Hellcat, the Bearcat, machines that carried the Grumman badge and carved their place in aviation history. To many Americans who lived through those years, the sound of a Grumman fighter was the sound of strength at sea. The stubby little F4F Wildcat held the line when the odds looked bleak, clawing at Japanese Zeros even when it was outclassed on paper. Then came the F6F Hellcat, a workhorse built in staggering numbers. More than 12,000 rolled out, and it became the Navy's hammer in the Pacific. By the time the sleek F8F Bearcat appeared, the war was nearly over, but it still earned fame later in the hands of air racers. Grumman had a reputation. Tough planes, dependable planes, the kind you could throw onto a carrier deck and trust to come back. But history has a funny way of remembering only a few stars and leaving the others in the shadows. Everyone recalls the Wildcat, the Hellcat, the Bearcat, yet tucked between those names were designs that promised even more, but never got their chance to shine. And that's where our story begins, with a heavyweight fighter called the Tigercat. To understand where the Tigercat came from, we need to step back a few years, to a little-known machine that never saw combat, but left a lasting mark inside Grumman's drawing rooms, the XF-5F Skyrocket. In 1938, the Navy issued a new set of requirements for a carrier fighter: less than 9,000 pounds empty, a stall speed under 70 miles per hour, a range of at least 1,000 miles, and an armament heavier than anything in service at the time. Most builders answered with single-engine designs, but Grumman decided to be bold. The Skyrocket looked like nothing else in the air. With its twin engines and a wing that stretched ahead of its stubby fuselage, it almost resembled a fish clutching a plank. Odd as it appeared, the design had one party trick few could match: climb rate. The Skyrocket could claw upward at nearly 4,000 feet per minute, faster than any Allied fighter then flying. Against that, the British Spitfire looked sluggish, and even the promising Corsair couldn't keep up in a climb. But speed told another story. The Corsair topped out above 400 miles per hour, while the Skyrocket struggled to break 386. Added to that were cooling troubles and the headaches of maintaining two engines on a carrier deck. The Navy went with the simpler path. The Corsair moved forward. The Skyrocket stayed behind. Grumman wasn't the kind of company to abandon a good idea just because the Navy passed it over once. The lessons of the Skyrocket lingered, and by 1941 the call came for something even bigger. The Navy had its eye on the Midway-class carriers then taking shape, floating airfields far larger than anything seen before. If the ships grew in size, why not the planes that flew from them? On June 30th, 1941, the Navy ordered two prototypes from Grumman. One would become the F6F Hellcat, a straightforward successor to the Wildcat. The other was an all-new twin-engine brute, designed to be faster, tougher, and far more heavily armed than anything yet to touch a carrier deck. That machine was the XF7F. From the start, it dwarfed the Skyrocket. The Tigercat stretched nearly 45 feet long, with a wingspan of more than 51 feet, and weighed over 16,000 pounds empty, closer to a light bomber than a fighter. Power came from two Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasps, each delivering about 2,100 horsepower. Together, they pushed the plane to 435 miles per hour at altitude, with a climb rate over 4,500 feet per minute. Armament was equally intimidating: 4 20mm cannons, 4.50 caliber machine guns, and the capacity to haul bombs, rockets, or even torpedoes. On paper, the Tigercat was not just a fighter. It was a war machine built to dominate air and ground alike. For Grumman, it was the answer to the question left hanging by the Skyrocket: a chance to prove that two engines could mean twice the power without losing the soul of a fighter. For all its muscle, the Tigercat didn't just look like an oversized Wildcat. Grumman gave it a cleaner, more traditional silhouette. Gone was the odd, short-nosed look of the skyrocket. In its place stood a long fuselage stretching well ahead of the wings, a tall vertical fin in back, and tricycle landing gear, another first for a Navy fighter. To sailors used to tail draggers bouncing down a deck, the sight of a three-wheeled Grumman perched nose-high looked almost futuristic. The Navy wanted a powerhouse, and Grumman delivered. But when it came time to settle on a name, the story took a strange turn. Among test crews, the F7F earned the nickname Tomcat. The label fit. It was sleek, predatory, and in line with Grumman's tradition of feline names. Confident, the company sent the name up the chain for approval. Washington didn't see it that way. The Navy's official reply was almost comical. Tomcat, they ruled, suggested feline promiscuity, an unfit name for a weapon of war. So Tigercat was chosen instead, close enough in spirit but safer for the brass. Ironically, 3 decades later, Grumman's F-14 would wear the Tomcat name proudly and nobody seemed to mind. Timing, it seems, is everything. The Tigercat first took to the air on November 2, 1943. It wasn't a dramatic debut, just a short hop off the runway, but within weeks it was showing what 2 R-2800s could really do. Grumman's veteran test pilot, Corwin "Corky" Meyer, fell in love with the aircraft almost instantly. He later called it one of the finest fighters he ever flew. But test pilots live on the edge, and Corky nearly pushed too far. On December 5th, during a demonstration for Navy brass, he roared down the runway, climbed at a rate the Hellcat could never touch, dove past 400 miles per hour, and then pulled into a low-level pass. Only a flagpole in his path snapped him back to reality. Corky yanked the Tigercat upward, missing disaster by a hair. The crowd was impressed, but Grumman's flight director was furious. Corky got a week's suspension, and a story that followed him for the rest of his career. The near miss was forgivable. The real trouble came with carrier trials. Taking off from a deck wasn't the issue. The Tigercat could leap into the sky with room to spare. Landing was another matter. The tailhook design didn't match Navy standards, and worse, if one engine quit, the plane became dangerously unstable. A single-engine landing on a carrier deck was judged impossible. The verdict was clear. The Navy would not risk it. The Tigercat, built for the sea, was now destined for land. Grounded from carrier decks, the Tigercat's story could have ended right there. But Grumman and the Navy weren't quite ready to give up. Instead, they tried reshaping the design, hoping one version might finally make the big cat behave. The first production run, the F7F1, built just 34 examples. It was a single-seat day fighter, heavily armed but hampered by the same stability problems that sank its carrier trials. So Grumman shifted gears. Next came the F7F2N, a night fighter. This model stretched the cockpit to fit 2 crewmen and packed an APS-6 radar set in the nose. To make room, the 4 nose-mounted .50s were removed, but the cannons remained. 65 were built, proving the Tigercat could hunt after dark. The F7F-3 followed, the most numerous of all. Nearly 190 rolled off the line, fitted with improved double Wasp engines and a larger tail to cure control issues. Performance climbed past 460 miles per hour, but carrier tests still ended in failure. So Grumman tried again with the F7F-3N, another radar-equipped night fighter, and then the F7F-4N, the last throw of the dice. With a redesigned tailhook and other tweaks, this final variant finally passed carrier trials. The irony was painful. By the time the Navy said yes, the war was already over. By the summer of 1945, a handful of Marine squadrons were training on the Tigercat, eager to take their sleek new mounts into battle. The plan was to bring them forward to Okinawa, where the last and bloodiest campaign of the Pacific still raged. But fate had other ideas. The very week those squadrons set sail, Japan surrendered. The war was over, and the Tigercat had missed its moment. For a brief time, it looked like the big twin might still carve out a role in the post-war Navy. But history was moving fast. Jets were no longer a dream on the horizon. They were already entering service. Against a shooting star or a Sabre, the Tigercat's 435 miles per hour looked dated. The future had wings of metal, not props. Still, the Marines put the plane to work when war flared again in Korea. Tigercats flew night patrols, ground attack missions, and reconnaissance runs. Their heavy cannon armament made them effective strafers, and the range was appreciated over the rugged Korean terrain. Officially, they scored just 2 air-to-air kills, both against slow-moving Po-2 biplanes on night reconnaissance. Hardly the glory Grumman envisioned. For the rest, the Tigercat filled useful but unspectacular roles, dropping ordnance, scouting, carrying supplies. It was reliable, powerful, and well-liked by the crews who flew it. But in the big picture, it had arrived at the wrong time. Too late for World War II, too early to matter in the jet age. Looking back, the Tigercat was a paradox. On paper, it was everything a fighter pilot could want. Fast, heavily armed, and blessed with the raw punch of 2 mighty double wasps. In the cockpit, many test pilots praised its agility, its visibility, and its range. Corky Meyer, who knew the plane better than anyone, swore it was one of the best fighters he ever flew. Even Admiral Fred Trapnell, famous for his blunt critiques, admitted the Tigercat had unmatched power and handling. And yet, history gave it no stage. The war ended before it could see combat. The jet age began before it could prove itself in numbers. In the end, the Tigercat fell into that small fraternity of late-war aircraft, machines like the Bearcat or Twin Mustang, built too late to fight the war they were meant for, and too soon to compete with jets that would redefine the skies. But maybe that's why the Tigercat is worth remembering. It stands as a symbol of what might have been, a bridge between eras, a beast that never got its battle. For those who appreciate the hidden corners of aviation history, it remains a favorite. How about you? Do you remember the first time you saw a Tigercat or heard the thunder of a twin radial engine overhead? Share your memories in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more forgotten legends of the sky.